Today we are discussing Salarjung reforms, Mulki rules under Mir Osman Ali Khan. Telangana formation, there is one important topic always we are discussing about, that is Mulki. The word Mulki is inherently coming always in all the topics starting from this class till the end. Mulki is a word. What is Mulki? Mulki means native. So, natives fighting for their rights. This is the essence of Mulki rules. Basically, when we talk about Mulki rules, it is related to jobs. Mulkis are not deprived of jobs and non-Mulkis are getting jobs. That is why from now onwards, whenever we are talking about the issues of the locals, they are fighting for the jobs. When they are fighting for the jobs, we are talking about Mulki rules. Not only now, then we'll see from Salarjung period to 14F, we fought for the issue of employment in Hyderabad. That is, it should not become free zone. Every time it is employment which is the crucial issue, which is making the agitation begin, grow and explode into a bigger movement. That is what the power of employment is. For jobs, for want of jobs, people fought. And Mulki rules are the rules which are providing the rights for the locals or natives, or as Mulki means in Urdu, 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧, ante ye desham. Mulk is the country. Mulki means the countrymen, that is locals, people of the country. This is Mulki. So in this topic, we will be discussing about the various aspects. What is happening under the earliest regimes, earliest periods of our Telangana history. Telangana formation paper, we are not discussing starting from Shatavahana or prehistory. Telangana formation paper, we are discussing from the 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 period. Why we are talking 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 period in the beginning? Why not we are talking about something else? Because we are dealing with the issues and problems of a modern state. What do you mean by modern state? We are talking for a separate state. State or Rashtra. State, not Rajyam in terms of that we are talking. State is not the government I am talking. State in terms of a territory in one country. A concept of a state in one country is a modern concept. In erstwhile history also you have Vihar, biggest provinces and all those things like Aharas in Shatavahana period. Ahara is a province, but now we are calling it a state. But we are not discussing about the problems of the states or the demand or rights or the people fighting for a separate statehood. But we are having it in the modern period. Why we are having such questions? It is because the modern concept of rights for the people, right of self-rule, is a democratic aspect which is getting unveiled in the latter half of 19th century, that is post 1850. Gradually modernity is creeping into the state and you are having a question of rights of the people, rights of the natives for employment. That is why when we talk about Telangana formation paper itself is the paper about the rights of Telanganites. So here, today we are discussing about the rights of the Telangana people or the people under Hyderabad state, under Nizam rule, about employment. What were the problems, issues and the deliberations or organizations which are coming into existence? So, the first and foremost, let's see the topics which we are going to deal. Administration in Hyderabad princely state and administrative reforms of Salarjung and origins of the issue of Mulkis or non-Mulkis. Then second topic is employment and civil service rules under Mir Osman Ali Khan, that is the 7th Nizam. Nizam's Firman of 1919 and definition of Mulki. Establishment of Nizam's Subjects League known as the Mulki League 1935 and its significance. This is the topic we are going to deal today. So first of all, let me talk about Salarjung, a person who has brought modernity into Hyderabad state. What do you mean by modernity? Salarjung, a diwan under a feudal king, but still I am talking about the modernity. 1850s is the period when you are getting all the changes into your social structure, political structure, economic structure. And if you take the 1857 as a cut point in Indian history, that is first war of Indian independence, or his British historians called it or diminished the real prestige of the whole movement as Sipahi Mutiny, and 1850 to 57 are the tumultuous years or the simmering years when changes are happening. During this period, Salar Jung is becoming the Diwan of Hyderabad state. Salar Jung original name is Mir Mahbub Ali Khan. He became the Diwan, that is the Prime Minister, in 1853 and was there in power till 1883. Means 3 decades of service to Hyderabad state as the Diwan. He served under 3 Nizams. One is Nasir-ud-Dawla, 𝗹𝗁𝗪, Mir Mahbub Ali Khan. And these 2 people, first people, Nasir-ud-Dawla and 𝗹𝗁𝗪, these people were witnessing a great change, that is 1857. Nasir-ud-Dawla was on his deathbed when changes are happening, and 𝗹𝗁𝗪 is getting into the power, getting into the seat during this period. And Mir Mahbub Ali Khan was a small boy when Salar Jung I, that is Mir Mahbub Ali Khan, already completed his 20 years of service in Hyderabad state. So 3 Nizams were served by Salar Jung I. Importance of Salar Jung I in Hyderabad history is Salar Jung has brought in reforms. When we speak of Salar Jung reforms, why reforms? This is the question. The background of reforms, Hyderabad state was impoverished, indebted, and completely surrendered politically, economically to British company. Why? Starting from 1800, I am just briefing the background. 1800 onwards, you have this change. First, subsidiary treaty, subsidiary alliance is the treaty. With the subsidiary alliance treaty, British has established its power over Hyderabad state. Since then, lot of things were happening in Hyderabad state. I am not going into those details because that is part of the Telangana history in detail. But impoverishment of Hyderabad state became a bigger thing by 1850s. By 1850, Hyderabad state completely broke down, and Nizam has to mortgage lands, jewelry to pay the salaries of the employees. That was the condition at this juncture. At the same time, not only this, the territories of Nizam like Berar, Raichur were taken away by British because of non-payment of debts. In this background, in this period, at this juncture, Salar Jung I is becoming the Prime Minister. Salar Jung I, nephew of erstwhile Prime Minister Diwan, that is Mir Osman, and coming from an aristocratic family, having understood the intricacies of the administration, since he served as Talukdar of Medak already, he knows how the revenue administration functions, and all these things added to his experience, and when he became the Diwan, he is the one who is bringing the reforms. These reforms has 2 edges. Reform, when you are talking about reform, this is to consolidate the state, consolidate the Nizam's state, economically, politically, administrative-wise, everything is getting consolidated through reforms. For that, he has established a thorough, perfect, systematic administration structures so that the reforms can be taken up on a big scale. And these reforms, always remember, when you bring a reform, reform means a change. You are bringing reform in a field, in a particular field, means it is opening up gates for change. All these reforms have opened some gates, and those gates are taking Hyderabad state into modernity. That Hyderabad state entering into a new phase till 1850s, you don't have much of the development in terms of modern things. But post 1850s, all the developments we talk about, like railways, communication, education, all these things, mining or new hospitals, all these things are coming after 1850s only. This is not in isolation. Actually, these changes are happening in tune with the British India. Outside Hyderabad state, the changes are happening. Here, the agent of change in Hyderabad state is Mir Mahbub Ali Khan. Some people just in an isolated way, think about Salar Jung and says that his reforms are great. You shouldn't see anyone's reforms in isolation. These things are happening in tune with the happenings in the surrounding areas. Everything has interaction with the other. That is why, because Salar Jung is also very close to British. Then what is happening in British India is also being taken up in Hyderabad state. It is not copying, but it is taking the best things about administration, best things about the consolidation of state he is taking up. That is the basis and that is the background of Salar Jung reforms. When I talk about Salar Jung reforms, immediately the issue of Mulki also come in. Why Mulki has to come in when we talk about reforms? Simple principle, this will flow into the class further. I am explaining the basic principle. When you bring in reforms, you are dealing with the changes. When you want to implement those reforms, you will appoint some people. If the people who are appointed are locals, there will be no issue. If the people are not locals, if they are not from the local area, if they are not from the native places, if they are coming from some other areas, because of their efficiency, they are coming into the state and becoming the officials, then the rise of Mulki and non-Mulki contradiction will be there. Remember this aspect. That's it. Nothing big, nothing less. Mulki issue has its roots in reforms itself, because reform should be carried thoroughly and you bring in some people who are non-natives and you have the beginning of Mulki issue. This is the essence of Mulki rules, Mulki issue and Salar Jung reforms, because this is opening the gates for modernity. This is opening the gates for the people to come in and join the services which is not liked by the locals. That's it. Now, when we divide the whole period of Salar Jung reforms, we have three periods. One is 1857 to 1864. This is the first phase, when the reforms are slow. Establishing a grip on administration is a major aspect of this period, because when it is beginning, you establish each and every system slowly. Then comes the middle period, that is 1864 to 1880. Then the speed of reforms is there. You can see the speedy implementation and meticulous implementation. Everything is set in a proper direction. That is the second period. And third period is 1880 to 1883. This is consolidation and the results of reforms you can see in this period. So, we divide the whole period in 1857 to 1883 because in 1883 Salar Jung 1 is no more. In 1883 he is dead. So, the reforms in three phases and the reforms in what forms? For example, you can take financial reforms, administrative reforms, revenue reforms, judicial reforms, police reforms, reforms in army and educational reforms. Every reform has its impact on the society. Every reform is interlinked with another reform too. For example, when I talk about revenue reforms, we need employees. Which reform will help? Educational reform will help to get better employees. If you are coming to judicial reforms, which is important? Again, here you should have enough judges, enough vakils or lawyers, then again education. When you go to administrative reform, you should have enough money to pay for the things. Then you should appoint or adopt best possible methods to implement financial reforms. So, each and every reform is related to one single word, that is the good governance or best governance. This good governance is nothing but you are maintaining all the departments in tune with the needs of the state. So, let us take first financial reforms. Financial reforms, any lay person, even in homes we have this basic question. If you are in deep crisis financially, what do? You lessen the expenditure and you try to improve the income. That's it. Salar Jung did this. He minimized the expenditure. He improved the revenue. This is the basic principle. If any book or many guides are giving so big, forget about it. This is the basic principle. And take this concept and write number of points. For example, he has removed many unproductive employees. 100 or so who were unproductive. They are not working. Their salaries are mere waste. So he sacked them. And some of the employees were getting more pay than their real work. Then what he did? He has cut the salaries. Reduction of the salary, removal of employees, and lastly, but not least, actually before doing all these things, tried to prove that he is serious about reforms. He cut his salary also. Not only the other salary, his salary also he reduced. And thus, what is happening? He is showing an example that the financial situation can be made better by lessening the expenditure and improving the income. Improving the income is the other aspect. We'll talk about that in revenue section. Then reduction of number of soldiers. Post 1857, there is a big change. Number of soldiers held by Nizam state was huge compared to many other princely states. But what is happening post 1857? The threat of Marathas or any other kingdom to Hyderabad state is gone. There are no Marathas after 1857. By 1857, whatever the Peshwas or other rebels who were fighting British were completely subjugated, and Hyderabad state became a princely state, and India became the colony, direct colony of British Crown. In this background, you don't need number of soldiers. So he reduced the number of soldiers, thus lessening the burden on the exchequer. So this is financial reforms. Then comes administrative reforms. For anything, if a state has to be strong, the whole administrative structure should be strong. So he first reorganized the state. First point is reorganization of state. Reorganization means the whole state should be cut according to administrative convenience, to improve revenues, to better administration revenue, law and order, anything. That is reorganizing the whole state. For example, post Telangana formation, after 3 years, we have changed our number of districts to 31 from 10. This is what reorganization of a state is. For better administration, you have to change the structures of the districts. So this man, Salar Jung, has reorganized the state. And second important reform of administrative is he has appointed talukdars and subedars who were paid officers. In the original format before, all these people were not paid officers. They were jagirdars, they were feudals, they were paigas, and many officers who were taking the areas into their hands by auction. So they are collecting revenue but paying part of it because they have to pay what they have to pay. How much they collect, the king is not bothering. Nizam is not bothering. Now with the paid officers, you will have a change. We will see it in revenue administration. Then third aspect is 𝗪𝗔𝗍 in 1865 to protect the talukdar system, means administrative system. This is department. From here onwards, you will see the departments coming into existence with a proper understanding. And 𝗪𝗪𝗺 as personal secretary he appointed. This 𝗪𝗪𝗺 was an officer outside Hyderabad state, but he was efficient in administration. So he brought in to Hyderabad state, and 𝗪𝗪𝗺 became the personal secretary. Now you can see he is trying to get the best employees from other places too. This is one of the example. Then established 14 departments. Those 14 departments, you will have a big list. Not going into those details. All these 14 departments are becoming functional and effective to make the administration a powerful one. And then come revenue systems, revenue reforms, Zilla-Bandi system, and appointment of paid officers, as already I have discussed, for revenue collection. This has reduced the middlemen. Previously, the middlemen who were used to collect the revenue need not pay the whole amount. The fixed amount which has to be paid to the state was given to state, and remaining were left with those middlemen, jagirdars, zamindars, and some nobles and officials, all these people. Now, when the paid officers are coming in, you are getting the complete amount into the coffers of the state. There is no middleman. So automatically the exchequer or our coffers, mana khajana, will be brimming or full of the revenue, which previously a bigger share was going into the local landlords or local feudals. Now this is giving an additional income to the state, which the state is entitled for. Either the peasant or the state should be there. But with the appointment of these talukdars, these middlemen were completely taken away, and this is bringing in much of the revenue to Hyderabad state. Then he constituted a revenue board in 1864 and again revamped in 1854. This board was abolished and some other structure is coming. I am not going into those details because in my topic I am dealing with the reforms of Salarjung, which will help you to understand the Mulki issue. That is our important aspect. So all the Salarjung reforms, we are not going into details in this chapter. Introduction of 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 system. 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 system is another important system which eliminates the middleman here. Rayat, that is, Rayat is a Persian word. Rayat, Raitu, what we are calling in Telugu today, Raitu, is coming from Rayat. Rayat are a Persian word. 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 system is nothing but directly the state is dealing with the farmer, peasant, and peasant is answerable to the state. So there is no middleman. That is another important aspect which has helped the revenue to get tripled. I will show you how it has tripled in the next phase. Then cancellation of Inam lands. When you cancel Inam lands, automatically Inam lands revenue will be taken by the holders of Inam. It is not useful for the state. When you cancel the Inams, what will happen? The income generated by these lands will come to the coffers of the state. So this is another important aspect. Then survey and settlement departments. Survey and settlement are crucial for the revenue collection. You should have a proper understanding how much the yield is, how much the land is, how much the productivity is of that particular piece of or bit or land. So this survey and settlement system has come in handy for revenue department to fix the tax. So these are the revenue reforms which have strengthened the coffers of the state within a short time. Then comes to judicial reforms. He has established courts at different levels and appointments of judges, and a law secretariat was appointed in 1862. Means he is making each and every department a systematized one, like the British India. Remember this. Whatever is happening here, he is taking a cue from the British Indian administration so that the state can be maintained or ruled in a proper direction. So, police reforms. Coming to police reforms, separating revenue from police. What do you mean by separating revenue and police? Previously, revenue officials were police officials and police officials are nothing but they are collecting the revenue also. There is no demarcation. Now, this separation of revenue and police departments made a lot of changes. With this, policing is completely different. Revenue focusing on completely revenue collection. And for policing, 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 𝗚𝗃𝗧. Mahakma means department. 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 𝗚𝗃𝗧. Kotwali means commissionerate. 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 𝗚𝗃𝗧, Nizamta. Nizamta is a spy department like thing. So all these departments were established. As once these departments were established, these departments are taking the what you call complete control of law and order or policing. Kotwali is urban policing, not rural policing. That is why today when we call Kotwal is city commissioner. And another reform in police is salaries to police personnel. In feudal periods, policing is also a feudal job like thing. They used to collect revenue and keep something for them and give remaining to the state, to the coffers of state, treasury of the state. Now they are paid officers. Since they are paid officers, they can't collect revenue. The salary they get is the income for them. He has made gradations for SPs so that bigger size districts, A grade, like that he has made gradations also. And police were not given jagirs or inams from this period onwards, making them just paid officers, making the force of police as thorough, professional, law and order policing department, not a feudal army. That is the essence of it. Then, transport reforms. Railways, Chanda railway scheme has opened up lots of things. Our railways introduced into Nizam state has opened up a new world completely. For jobs, many people are pouring into Hyderabad state. This is another reason for the Mulki. Though these people are coming for some other employment, but their children will be fighting for the posts. That is why Mulki issue has its roots in all these changes. Developing communication, telegraphs, all these things are part of the reforms of communication. Then comes educational reforms. Establishment of schools and colleges which brought in modernity and produced educated youth who can serve the state. We will see how this has impacted the Mulki movement in the latter stage. But once there is an educational institution, once there are schools and colleges, the products of these educational institutions will come out after graduating and they will be in search of jobs. Thus, now the contradiction, whether they get it or not, will lead into the Mulki contradiction. So, educational institutions definitely contributed for the growth of number of educated and the issue of Mulki. Then comes, we will talk about a brief historical account. That is this Mulki issue a beginning one, or it has lot of background, means much older than Hyderabad state? Yes, it is much older. Historically, this Mulki issue was very much old. It dates back to 𝗏𝗏𝗎 period, when under 𝗏𝗏𝗎 period, non-Dakkanis means those who are not in Dakkan at the time of this contradiction, Muslim or the army or the elite who are in Dakkan, already established in Dakkan. This is one group. The second group was those who are coming into Dakkan just immediately when a change is there, or when a king is bringing that man into his kingdom. For example, you take the case of Muhammad Gawan, who was brought into Dakkan and his seat was Bidar. A Bahmani king ordered, or he was trading with him. A trader from Persia is becoming a prime minister, and all the locals did not like it. That is why from 𝗏𝗏𝗎 period itself, there is a contradiction known as Mulki and non-Mulki. So, Mulki issue dates back to 𝗏𝗏𝗎 period, but it is not directly linked with our Telangana movement, because this is of early medieval periods. And the people who are fighting for rights of Mulki or non-Mulki are not ordinary people. These people are fighting for their pride place in the court or army or in the administration. So they had a huge big fight, and the fight was so intense under 𝗏𝗏𝗎s that the people in 𝗏𝗏𝗎 kingdom were divided, and both were doing conspiracies. When the conspirators, Dakkanis are conspirators and powerful, if they are ready to convince, or if they are convinced they could convince the ruler, 𝗹𝗁𝗺s will be killed. If 𝗹𝗁𝗺s are strong, Dakkanis will be killed or retrenched. That is how the contradiction in 𝗏𝗏𝗎 period itself started, and Muhammad Gawan was the victim for this contradiction. Muhammad Gawan was killed, though he was an efficient administrator, a great educationist, and his library is one of the finest of medieval periods. He brought in education into Hyderabad state. All these things are there. Still, since he was an 𝗹𝗁𝗺 and he was leading a group of 𝗹𝗁𝗺s against Dakkanis, he has to lose his life. He was hanged. So this is the history of Mulkis much before, that is early medieval period under the 𝗏𝗏𝗎s. Later, we will have the contradiction flowing in Asaf-Jahi period also. We have seen the contradiction during 𝗏𝗏𝗎 period, that is Dakhani versus 𝗹𝗁𝗺. Come to Asaf-Jahi period, post 1857. Post 1857, there is a huge change in this area. What is happening? In 1857, in many of the principalities, many of the princely states who were fighting against British, the soldiers lost their jobs, they were worsted, they were rebels, so they will not be in the British army post 1857. So in this process, many Muslim non-Mulki soldiers came in from north. Those areas like Oudh, in English we write OUDH or AVADH, Awadh. Awadh means Lucknow, Bengal, Delhi, Murshidabad, etc. All these areas, the rebels who were in the armies of the natives, armies of the native princes who rebelled against British even in British period. So all these people were pouring into Hyderabad state, coming into Hyderabad state because you have employment here. Why they are coming into Hyderabad state? Because those Muslim non-Mulkis, because this is ruled by a Muslim ruler and the language is also Persian official language. Persian official language helped a lot of non-Mulkis to some time, because till that time Persian is also one of the important language. So a ruler, Muslim ruler, and not contradicting lot of things of the princely states. Though he supported British in 1857, he is not contradicting with many states. So automatically the soldiers are coming into this period. And come to the period that is Salar Jung 1. In Salar Jung 1 period, you have the agenda of implementing the reforms. So for implementing the reforms from North, Bengal, Bombay, Madras, all these are provinces. Bombay, Bengal, Madras, these three were the centers of British education. British is trying to implement all the reforms and they were already entrenched into this soil through their forts administration. So you have trained personalities, trained persons, trained people with some experience in British, and they were also being taken into Salar Jung's period, Salar Jung's regime, because he was very close to British. He never hesitated to opt for the services of the non-Mulkis to implement his reforms agenda. Thus, you have a lot of Kayasthas and Khatris also coming into Hyderabad state. Kayastha, you know who is a Kayastha? For example, you take that surname like Srivastava, Nigam, Mathur, all these are Kayastha subcastes. So Kayasthas were coming into Hyderabad, and these people were coming into administration of Hyderabad state. And Khatris, this is another North Indian subcaste group which is coming. Today we have Dharmavant College in Old City. That Dharmavant College was started by the Khatri group, Khatri caste group, Khatris. This is a North Indian caste. So apart from this, we have another group of people who are bringing the people from outside into Hyderabad state. That is Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, the founder of Aligarh Muslim University, who started Aligarh Muslim University, we call it in the latter period, but it was known as Madrasatul Uloom in Aligarh, and he was also the advisor of Salar Jung. When Salar Jung is having such a great advisor, very interesting, Salar Jung and Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, both have one thing in common. Both are from the background of feudalism, but they are for the reforms. They are for the change. Sir Syed Ahmad Khan is bringing the change in Muslim society through education. That is why Mohammedan Anglo-Indian schools he is starting. He is starting Aligarh Muslim University to help Muslims to get educated in a modern way. The same person is the advisor of Salar Jung. So definitely Salar Jung is asking him to associate with the reforms, and he is also bringing many civil servants into Hyderabad state. So one section is from this one. Then Aminuddin Khan, another aide of Salar Jung, another advisor of Salar Jung, he also brought in many non-Mulkis into Hyderabad. So what is happening in this entire period? Reforms is the major agenda. Whoever is fit to implement reforms will come into Hyderabad state. This is the what you call brewing contradiction in Hyderabad society. They are being called in for services, but they are not completely given a free hand. Salar Jung was sharp enough to curtail some of the aspects about non-Mulkis. He restricted the interaction with the Mulkis, especially the nobles and Jagirdars and all those things. Because when the non-Mulkis officials who are appointed in the state are interacting with such officials, and definitely in that process, non-Mulkis are getting strengthened and taking the advantage of backwardness of Mulki Jamindars, they were ordering them. So all these things Salar Jung noticed, and they were curtailed of interaction. They can't meet the nobles easily. They were looked as purely some employees. Non-Mulkis were not given the Jagirs or titles. If you give Jagirs and titles, what will happen? They will grow strong. So it was not done. Political affairs in the Diwani were allocated to Mulkis, then appointed a Tamil Vakil in his court to represent him in British. Like this, he was taking lot of changes so that non-Mulkis will not get undue advantage of replacing Mulkis. And he opposed one thing for sure. Non-Mulkis were forcing him to make Urdu as the official language, and he was not ready to do it. He was reluctant to it, even opposing to do it vehemently. Why? Because when North Indian Muslims were proposing to change Urdu, it is for the disadvantage of locals. Till then, advantages were being taught in Persian, and North Indian Urdus were taught in Urdu. That will become an advantage for them. That is why he was opposing Urdu till his last breath. In 1868, in the last days of Afzal-ud-Dawla, a Firman was issued to appoint only Mulkis in all the departments. Because by 1868 itself, you can see this was made by Salar Jung. By this time, non-Mulkis are occupying lot of plum posts. They were dominating the scenario. So that is why Salar Jung took a strict attitude, measure against them. He tried to use the services of non-Mulkis. What for? To train the locals and send them back or grow the number of Mulkis in administration. But it was not done to a larger extent. That was the tragedy. Reforms in education was also aimed at making the successful, making the confident civil servants for Hyderabad state, educating and orienting them. That was the aim of educational institutions. So that was the attitude of Salar Jung about the reforms and Mulkis. Now we are talking about Mir Mahbub Ali Khan's regime, that is Mulki issue. Salar Jung too was the Diwan of Mir Mahbub Ali Khan, son of Salar Jung I. Urdu was replaced by Persian, and by this time the importance of non-Mulkis grew to a large extent. 1885 civil servants list, Mulkis were 246, non-Mulkis 230, almost equal. And who were the non-Mulkis? Hindustanis. Hindustani means North Indians, Madras people, Bombay, Europe and some other countries. These were the civil servants of this period. So these civil servants were completely dominating the scenario. If we take the percentage of share in their salaries also, you can see in the PowerPoint, like 58% was grabbed by non-Mulkis and 42% for Mulkis. One Karen Leonard has worked a lot on this Mulki issue and Hyderabad politics of this period. In that in detail she is explaining things, what is happening with Hyderabad state. In all the departments, non-Mulkis were dominant. And 1893, come 1893, 𝗂𝗽𝗱𝗁 Nizam, he has pointed out the problems in the present system. And he has brought a new scheme of his reforms. So remember this date, 1893, 𝗂𝗽𝗱𝗁 Nizam. This is very important, as this is the stamp of Mir Mahbub Ali Khan in his reforms. He was opposing Salar Jung II, but in the beginning year, Salar Jung II could do whatever he wanted. Within a short time, he fell out of favor. 1886-94, non-Mulkis percentage rose from 48 to 66. You can see the data. Then papers like Hyderabad Record, the Muhammadin, 𝗂𝗽𝗍, all these things are reporting on Mulki news. Mulkis, what they are thinking, what non-Mulkis are thinking. Among these papers, this 𝗂𝗍𝗍 was the paper which is in support of non-Mulkis. And they were belittling the Mulkis, saying that for a better administration, where can you find an efficient Mulki in Hyderabad? It means they are very clear that efficient Mulkis are not there in Hyderabad, they have to be brought in from outside. The same thing Andhras repeated in the latter phase. Telangana people were not capable, so they are coming in. This is the propaganda they were doing. So this is important about Mir Mahbub Ali Khan periods data. And Rai Balmukund, because of the educational institutions changing or becoming bigger ones, Rai Balmukund was the first Mulki graduate in 1885. He did his studies from Madras, and he became an officer in Nizam's court. At this point of time, the contradiction was between two types. The contradiction is of two types. One is Mulki Muslims versus non-Mulki Muslims. Mulki Muslims, non-Mulki, it is among the Muslims itself. Second thing is Hindus versus Muslims. Mulki Muslims are not liking non-Mulki Muslims grabbing the lion's share in jobs. If you take the whole population according to religion, most of the jobs are taken by Muslims and not Hindus. So automatically Hindus have the grouse over the Muslims. And in this background, in this period, you can see there were a lot of things going on in Mulki, as I have talked about the paper reportings. And in 1901, 𝗳𝗏 𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗃, he was the descendant of 𝗃𝗏𝗃 Akbar, 𝗃𝗏 was revenue minister in Akbar's ministry. So 𝗃𝗏's descendant, Maharaja 𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗃, again, he is not a local. He is from outside, but settled long back. By the time of Mir Mahbub Ali Khan period, he is a local. So Mir Mahbub Ali Khan's period, Maharaja 𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗃 was appointed as Diwan in 1901, and he also tried to implement Mulki rules to some extent. This is about Mir Mahbub Ali Khan period. Next comes the last Nizam, that is Nizam 7th, that is Mir Osman Ali Khan Siddiqui. Mir Osman Ali Khan's Firman of 1919, as the topic states, there are some rules and regulations. As I have talked about what do you mean by Mulk and what do you mean by Mulki. These are known as Mulki rules. From now onwards, you get Mulki rules in a popular format. Always you will be talking about Mulki rules. Hyderabad Mulki rules formed part of the Hyderabad Civil Services regulations promulgated by Nizam's Firman of 1919. So this is for the civil services, these rules will apply. The rules are, no person will be appointed in any superior or inferior services without specific sanction of the Nizam if he is not a Mulki. You understand? No one will be appointed for bigger or smaller post, but at the same time, if anything has to be, any such thing has to be done exceptionally, then it has to be sanctioned by the Nizam himself. That is number one. If non-Mulki is coming, it has to be given by the Nizam permission. Second, a person shall be called a Mulki if by birth he is a subject of Hyderabad, or by residence he is the subject of Hyderabad, or children whose father, we are not talking mother because mothers were not employed, we are talking of Asafzahi period. So no one considered mother as an employee or working woman. So whose father completed 15 years of service in Hyderabad at the time of the birth. That is important, underline that, at the time of birth. It is not just completing 15 of years. He should be an employee at the time of his birth. Then this Mulki rules fit. And next, wife of a person who is a Mulki. For example, a person is there, he is marrying into the other area. For example, Nizam state is there, in the border you get married to someone in the side by areas. Then what will be the status of that woman? She will be a Mulki because she is your wife. This is the person. Then a permanent resident for at least 15 years and declare before the magistrate that he will not return to his native place after retirement. This is to fix that we will do our jobs and meanwhile our sons will become officials and we go to our native place. This Osman Ali Khan is curtailing. So you have to give a declaration that I am not going back to my native place. Then only you will be a Mulki. So 1919, that 𝗂𝗶 Hukumat, that is Executive Council. 𝗂𝗶 Hukumat is the word for Executive Council. It was replaced. It replaced the old Cabinet Council, and this 1919 𝗂𝗶 Hukumat is bringing in some of the reforms, some of the changes in Constitution. So Rai Balmukund was asked to make a report on constitutional reforms on the lines of Montague-Chelmsford reforms. So definitely you can see parallelly running things. There you have reforms, enact Montague-Chelmsford Act. Then here in Hyderabad state also you are talking about such changes. And in this background, in 1921, Hyderabad State Reforms Association was formed. This Hyderabad State Reforms Association was an association of the people, not of nobles. This Hyderabad State Reforms Association gave representations to Nizam about some changes. And till 1923, means first 2 years, they were talking to Nizam, they were appealing to Nizam for some changes, not bigger changes, very small changes. And in 1923, when they approached Nizam to suggest some of the alternative forms of governance, Nizam did not like it. Because he is the ruler, he has to decide what rule has to be there or not. Who are you to decide? So, in 1923, when this Hyderabad State Reforms Association went to Nizam with a report, he did not like it. Instead, he initiated the security measure or a law and order measure, you call it as, that is 53 𝗧𝗧 Nishan. Under this 𝗧𝗧 Nishan, you have to take permission for any meeting. Political, cultural, everything, you have to take permission. So, that 53 𝗧𝗧 Nishan is very important in terms of law and order, like your 144 section. You can be arrested. So, this 1923 report and met with an adverse impact of 𝗧𝗧 Nishan. And in this entire period, educational institutions grew in number and rise of educated Mulkis, especially in English and Urdu, you can see growing. And in 1918, Osmania University has its first year, it was started, the first Firman was issued, and gradually a new university is coming up, that is Osmania University. Before, our institutions were affiliated to Madras University. Now, Osmania University itself is a university on this native land. So, in this background, Osman Ali Khan issued a Firman in 1933 because 1919 Firman could not bring any change, not much change. So, agitation was done by Mulkis, and another another flashpoint was when Khan Sahib from Punjab was appointed to an important position. Then Khan Sahib's appointment to an important position and no results from 1919 Mulki rules. So what happens? People started asking or demanding for protection of rights, and in this process 1933 Firman was issued. This 1933 Firman says strict appointment of Mulkis in all the departments. The strict employment means this is like warning. So that is why this 1933 was received by the people or the leaders or the people who are who and who of Hyderabad state in a very good manner. First of all, Kotwal, 𝗳𝗏 Venkatram Reddy thanked the regime, that is Nizam, and other people were gathered in a big meeting to say thanks or to show gratitude to Nizam for bringing in this 1933 Firman. Who were the people who were gathering in that meeting? Like Burgul Ramakrishna Rao, Mandumla Narsingarao, Padmaja Naidu, daughter of Sarojin Naidu, Latif Saeed, Mir Akbar Ali Khan, Abdul Hassan Saeed, like this, all these people were part of this big movement, big meeting to thank Nizam. And 1933, they thanked Nizam for bringing such wonderful protection for the Mulkis. But this is a success, that is why they were in some high moods. So in this background, after 2 years, you see a new organization named Nizam Subjects League was formed. What is this Nizam Subjects League? Subjects means people. Nizam Subjects League is also known as 𝗳𝗧 𝗵𝗻 Nizam, or Nizam's People Association in plain words. It has given a major slogan, that is Hyderabad for Hyderabadis. Remember, this question was asked in one of the TSPSC examinations. Hyderabad for Hyderabadis was the slogan given by whom? That is Nizam Subjects League. And this league elected a body, and Nawab Nizam was the president, Burgul Ramakrishna Rao was the secretary. So a new organization, now you can see Nizam Subjects League. This is 1935. But by 1931, you have another association also, that is known as Andhra Mahasabha, Nizam Rashtra Andhra Mahasabha. They were also demanding some of the demands which all the other people are doing. So Nizam Subjects League, prior to this is Nizam Rashtra Andhra Mahasabha, why these organizations are coming into existence which never came in 1800 or 1700? Because people understanding that we have the right. We have the right to what? We have the right to property. We have the right to live. We have the right to economy, our livelihood. All these things are the concept they are understanding. That is why when the new concept under the last phase of your capitalism is bringing in the nation, the human rights and all these things, and Burgula Ramakrishna Rao, Nawab Nizam Zeng were the presidents, and that is the Subjects League. Other people like 𝗂𝗪𝗺, Madapati Hanumantrao, Mandumla Narsingarao, Latif Saeed, Ramchandra Naik, all these people were the members of this league. And Nizam Subjects League aimed obedience to Nizam, fight for Mulki rights, obedient to Nizam, because if you are obedient to Nizam, you will get some benefits. Fight for Mulki rights. This is the essence of your meeting. So, fight for Mulki rights, obedience to Nizam goes together so that you can bargain some of the rights to the people. Then, contribute to the culture and traditions, unity of communities, upliftment of downtrodden, all these things were there in Andhra Mahasabha also. But this is different from Nizam Andhra Mahasabha, Nizam Rashtra Andhra Mahasabha, because Nizam Rashtra Andhra Mahasabha is for Telugus and Nizam Subjects League is just not for Telugu. This is for the subjects of Nizam state, means people of Nizam state. So, this Nizam Subjects League appealed for a responsible government, and before this appeal also, when they approached Nizam for all these demands, Nizam has appointed a committee known as 𝗹𝗁𝗪𝗀𝗃 Committee. 𝗹𝗁𝗪𝗃 a Tamilian. 𝗹𝗁𝗪𝗃 Committee framed Mulki rules, and these Mulki rules were under implementation. But the word responsible government was not liked by Nizam. That is why this appeal of responsible government could not find a huge response at this point of time. At the same time, the league was dissolved in 1939 because the Muslims who were into this organization were moving to Ithihadul Muslimin. So 1930s, they are gradually shifting to that. And you have Andhra Mahasabha for Telugus. So, league lost its importance. Though it is a small purpose, it could affect for some time. Then, Nizam Subjects League has many important people who are talking about the rights. And we see a change in the entire process. What are the major aspects of this period? How do you sum up the Mulki issue? Summing of Mulki issue is very important, because what questions you may get in your examination is, how does the Mulki rules issue has affected the polity of Hyderabad state, the effect of Mulki rules on Hyderabad state, effect of Mulki issue on Hyderabad state in terms of polity. This is the question. So, you have to write the entire 1857 Asafzai period to this time Osman Ali Khan period. So, when we talk about these changes, reforms bringing into change from Salar Jung period and finally Osman Ali Khan period, you have lot of change going on. Major aspects of this Mulki issue are, though Nizam 6 and 7, that is Mahbub Ali Khan and Osman Ali Khan, issued Firmans, the implementation was not there at a desired level. Desired level means what? It was not effectively implemented. That is one thing. As a result, you can see, because your desire is to have a big, good established state with a perfect employees, with very efficient employees, but you cannot get unless and until you train them or orient them. For thus, there is a window period, a gap. But till this period, many non-Mulkis occupied this place. That is where non-Mulki issue has started. So, this is the first point. Though Nizam 6th and 7th issued Firmans, implementation was not at the desired level. And next, raising the issue of Mulki rights is very, very interesting aspect. That is, this is the first step in the feudal country in terms of a democratic aspiration. What do you mean by democratic aspiration? Under the feudal countries, under feudal rules, you don't have anything like we have a right. People never say that we have a right, we can choose you. They can't say a ruler or a king can be chosen by the people. But in a democratic setup, when the modernity is creeping in, sweeping in Hyderabad state, other parts of the subcontinent, that is British India, is bringing in some changes. So Hyderabad is also will not leave aloof. So automatically the changes happening is entering into Hyderabad state, and democratic consciousness of rights of Mulkis for employment is beginning. This is an important question for next round of development. Means once you understand that we have a right, you will fight. If you don't have a right, you will not fight. Your consciousness will not be there that this is mine, then you will not fight. So Mulki issue has brought a very, very important question, that is democratic aspiration of the natives for employment. Again, come to our modern phase, last phase of our Telangana movement. What we are talking, the same thing. We are talking about the rights of the locals, that is Mulkis, in employment. So Mulki issue has a great role in the entire issue of employment, resources, development and consolidation of Hyderabad state. In your examination, as I said, I repeat, you may get a question, a descriptive question, long question, need not be too long, need not be too short. Like in UPSC, you have mixed questions, different number of marks. So the question can be asked, explain the importance of Mulki rule in shaping up the polity of Hyderabad state. I repeat, explain the importance of Mulki issue in shaping up of the polity of Hyderabad state. So in the next class, we will be taking up a fresh topic after this Mulki. What are the changes happening in Hyderabad?